Hello, hello, and welcome back to the Empower Her podcast. I'm your host, Deanna DeBolt, and I have a special guest on the podcast today. My guest is an embodiment coach who helps visionary entrepreneurs and leaders reconnect with their bodies and soul's purpose to create from a place of deep alignment. With a background in marketing and somatic work and over a decade of experience with yoga, meditation, breathwork, and energy work, she guides others through the inner shift from pushing and performing to living, creating, and expressing from embodied presence, purpose, and vitality. Originally from Europe and now based in Miami, her work bridges feminine and earth wisdom with modern leadership. Please welcome Barbora Pocuchova to the podcast. Hi, Barb. Welcome.
Hi, Diana. Thank you so much for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
I'm so excited to chat with you. I always tell my listeners where we met because I think it's really important to emphasize sort of like the networking as well, because a lot of them are, trying to find jobs and really connecting with other people. So I always like to share, how I met the person I'm talking to. And you and I met on LinkedIn and we chatted a few months ago, and I really enjoyed our conversation. That kind of is what led to us having the, podcast recording today, which I'm so excited about.
Yeah, I remember that very vividly. And yeah, I just felt there was like an instant resonance in our conversation, and being able to go deeper beyond business and dive really into more of the energetic topics. That's, I feel, what made us come together as well.
Absolutely. And that's something I really love. Speaking of energetics, I know you're really into astrology, human design. Something I always like to ask my guests when they come on is your astrology, because I think it gives you some good insights into who you are. So I'd love for you to share, if you feel comfortable, your big three. So your sun, moon, and rising. I know you're a Taurus sun. I saw that on your LinkedIn profile, but anything else you want to share, rising, moon, sign, and sort of how that relates to your career as a whole?
Right. Yeah, astrology can be really revealing and provide so many insights. So I love diving into this. So as you correctly saw, I'm a Taurus sun. So really bringing more of that grounded presence. And how I feel it really connects to my business nowadays is really that deep connection to the body and to the earth, and bringing that forward, this connection to others. So that's where kind of my embodiment work stems from. It feels really natural to me. And with regards to the moon, so I'm an Aries moon, that also is connected to, I feel I'm really driven by emotions and intuition. So really tapping into like what makes me feel alive and just having that vision and following it. And then for the rising, I'm a Libra rising. So that's like how you appear to the external world. Even though I'm an introvert, I do love to socialize and just be around people, have conversation, but that sense of balance is also needed. So I can sometimes have those people-pleasing tendencies, like be there for others. And that's where I know, okay, I need to pull my energy back.
Totally. That makes a lot of sense. It's funny too, because you're a projector, I saw as well in human design. And I have read a lot of people's charts, and I see that a lot of Taurus suns are projectors. I don't know if that's an actual connection, or maybe I just attract Taurus suns and projectors, but I've noticed there's a correlation to that, which is really interesting.
Yeah, that's really interesting. It's the first time I hear it, but the fact that you've seen this pattern often can be revealing. It could be the fact that like Taurus is all about like slowing down and coming back to your pleasure and your senses. And as projectors, we thrive when we slow down, when we feel ourselves, because that's how we can connect to others and guide others and help others. So there might be this sort of relation with it.
Absolutely. I love that. And I love talking about astrology and human design. I think we talked about that last time as well. And, I really wanted to talk to you as well because you're someone similar to me in the sense that, you're from Europe, you live in the States now, you kind of have that dual relationship. You've seen kind of both worlds. And I'm wondering, you having lived and been in so many different places, how have those experiences really shaped you as a person and specifically in your career?
Yeah, it's had a huge impact on my life and business in general, because the moving around, like living in different places, started already when I was 5 years old. And every 4 years, we moved with my parents to different countries. So from the US to different countries in Europe. And then later on, I continued the journey by myself to Australia. And I feel I kept that adventurous explorer spirit. It was just part of who I am. And obviously there were a lot of benefits and like beautiful experiences, right? When you live in so many different countries, I learned 5 languages. I met people from all over the world. I was really exposed to different worldviews, which now I'm really grateful for because it led me to kind of think out of the box and not see one view as like this is paved in stone and this is just how it is, right? It led me to kind of question things and have this discernment and being able to empathize with other people from different cultures. So definitely a huge advantage in my career, bringing these benefits. On the other side, one of the major challenges I had to work through is that I have not been growing up in one culture, in one community, being rooted somewhere, right? It was always like, okay, once I got to know a place and people, oh, we're moving on to the next one. And there was never a sense of like, okay, this is who I am. And like, these are the people, because usually like the people around us and relationships reflect back to us who we are. And for me, it was a constant like adapting and going outside, like learning new things. So I really miss that kind of, yeah, that deeper connection to who I was, and rather blending myself like a chameleon, adjusting myself to the environments. And that kind of catalyzed this evolution to who I became today. Is like it reached such an extreme point that I completely lost touch with who I was. I started dissociating from my body, my emotions. I became really numb through it later on because I just didn't have that sense of safety and stability. And as you know, like when you reach such a low point, that really awakens something in you. And okay, it sets you on a journey. And that's really when I started like connecting deeper to who I was and what brings me alive. And most importantly, who I am not, because I feel all of us on this journey, we feel a sense of like, okay, in order to discover who you are, you need to see, wait a second, like all these programs and beliefs and ideas, like this is not actually who I am. This is how society or your environment shaped you. So yeah, it just catalyzed this huge inner journey within.
I can imagine. I mean, you mentioned how this was really challenging for you, and I totally empathize with that. I always felt like I never fit into either the States or Europe. People would always say to me, oh, you're so American, or oh, you're so European. And I didn't ever feel like I was able to fit in. But I can imagine as well, at least I felt this way. Maybe you felt differently, but I know you kind of mentioned this at the beginning, but there's a lot of advantages with this as well. Like you said, you could be a chameleon, you could adapt to different situations. I could imagine this affects you positively in terms of making friends. And we'll talk about sort of another business you're doing, which I think greatly aligns with this, but whether it's making friends or meeting new people or being able to up your life and move to another country. So I imagine there can be a lot of positive aspects to this as well.
Absolutely. It's what we make out of it, right? Because I've read a really interesting article recently where they interviewed, they're called third culture kids, so people who have grown up globally like this. And it was really interesting to see like how people responded, because a lot of them took like the empowered approach, right? Like, okay, it was challenging, but it's what I make out of it. And like, maybe it gives me a sense of purpose. And now I'm meant to help others with something similar, right? And then some others might see it rather as a disadvantage, and it really influences then their path without having to do that inner healing work.
Absolutely. I definitely agree that it is what you make of it. I think that goes for everything in life, really. But I try to live in a space of abundance and looking at what we can learn from each situation. And so I think that that's, a really great approach to doing that. And I sort of want to transition into how that relates to your career as well, because like me as well, you spent a lot of time in marketing. I also spent time in marketing, and ultimately you created and pivoted to doing your own business in embodiment. So I'm wondering if you could kind of share what got you into marketing in the first place, what you loved about it, and sort of what that transition looked like.
Right. So I started, so my college degree was in international business. And what led me to this was the fact that I grew up in different countries and I just found it exciting, right? To communicate in different languages and do business and specifically marketing. As a Taurus, I'm really drawn to like aesthetics and creativity, and through that Libra rising, communication was also important to me. So I think at that time I did not know astrology, but looking back, I think that's what drew me into that space. And I always followed something that inspired me. So I always wanted to work in fashion. I think at that time I was kind of influenced by the glamour of it, but then later on moved more into like wellness and health, that kind of space, because it was really through my own like journey that I became really interested in these spaces. And yeah, then I started my own business in 2021 after coming back from Australia. I needed kind of a new mission and was looking kind of already at that time deeper into my purpose. And it was really, I love supporting health and wellness brands and I want to help them grow. And at that time, everybody was online and building their personal brands. And that was kind of that space to be, right? Online. And so I went into copywriting, messaging, and really helping them grow from there. And it's been a wonderful journey. In fact, today I've kind of done a recap on LinkedIn about everything that I've done with these brands, like working with top brands like Healthpreneur or Thrive Global, and really learning some really valuable skills and just making amazing connections along the way. And just that fully transformed me, like the people I get to meet through LinkedIn, the clients, and it was just wonderful. And I feel like as I went along this journey, specifically last year, something started brewing within me, was the fact I was kind of in parallel, like on parallel tracks with my spiritual and embodiment journey, doing the healing work, yoga, breath work. And then on another side track, I was doing the marketing. And even though it was related to health and wellness, somehow these two worlds were like on sidetracks, they were not integrated. And I started feeling this deep calling, like I want to integrate who I really am into my work. And perhaps there's a deeper purpose to unfold. Maybe now I am ready to start sharing all this wisdom that I've learned with others and guide them into deeper spaces of transformation and just use the spiritual gifts I've acquired. So yeah, it's been really fulfilling. You know, when you listen to your intuition, and kind of silence the mind and all the fears and like the things that we go through when we run our business. It's just so beautiful listening to that voice within.
Absolutely. You mentioned sort of your spiritual gifts, and I was wondering if you could talk more about what those are, what they look like, how you use them in your business.
Such a great question. Yeah, I think that's something I started exploring deeper last year. Even though it's been 10 years I've been doing yoga and meditation, I never thought of myself like I have a gift for it. Even if I was then teaching it to others, it was just something that came naturally to me. And, you know, I was more focused on the harder business skills, like, okay. But then, like, I was really, last year I've done some deep coaching work with some mentors, and that really catalyzed within me, like, what am I really good at without that comes to me effortlessly and that I can help others with. And it was really that sense of intuition. So using my intuition to guide people into these deep states of meditation where they kind of unplug like from the mind and tap deeper into this into their heart space and into the womb as well. And last year it started really activating. So I started connecting more like with spirit guides as well. And just my multi-dimensionality opened up. So connecting from up until the 12D, you know, and working with different like grail queens and other beings who really help me support. Now when I connect with someone, I can kind of tap into their energy. I can sense what they're really good at and where they might have blocks. And I didn't have this intuitive like power and and knowing until last year. So that's when it really started opening up.
What do you think allowed you to have these spiritual gifts really come to life?
Good question. Yeah, I think it's that sensitivity. So I was always very sensitive as a child, and also through the journey, as you know, like when you live in different countries, you're always on alert, right? You need to scan your environment, like is it safe, is it not safe? And being really empathetic, right? It's all like usually it's on you to make new friends, right? So you have to go out there and be with new people, new environments. So I think it's really that sensitivity and being open. I feel I was on a plant medicine journey last year on ayahuasca, and that really opened up as well, like the visions and all these like psychic senses, the clairs. So yeah, just being open and not being afraid of what there is to see and hear, because they're really benevolent beings that want to communicate and guide you.
You have to tell me more about ayahuasca because I've heard so many things, good and bad. So I'd love to hear your experience with it if you'd be open to sharing because it's so interesting.
Yeah, I had a wonderful journey overall with ayahuasca, but again, it's what you make out of it. So it was not a smooth ride. Obviously, ayahuasca really is a mirror. She shows you what you've kind of buried, neglected, or not looked at. So it's really, she really goes with you into those subconscious parts of your mind and body. And she shows you like the experiences you have not processed from your childhood or from society conditioning in general. When I was sitting with ayahuasca, I had this both like very beautiful visions. I really connected to the shamans, I was in Peru, so very like Peruvian symbols and animals, and really like connected to the jungle and feeling really like embodied. It was amazing for that. But again, like we live in a world of polarities, so light and darkness, then I would say 50% of the time, or even more probably, could be even 70% of the time, was spent really facing the pain that I've endured. And looking at it again and just realizing the connection it has to the intention that I set for myself. So yeah, it was really enlightening. I feel it does so I've connected with different people there in the group, and they had different experiences with like somatic work, meditation, plant medicine. I was brand new to it. So I didn't know what to expect. I just like was fully open. Other people did it like 10, 20 times. And they had their own journeys. What I do feel is some level of like meditation experience is helpful, because then you can really listen and tune into it and be with what is there, right? Because I feel some people were expecting, okay, we're going to go on a ride and it's going to be so amazing. But it's really more about like, what have you not faced yet and what you need to integrate. So just having that clear expectation, like, okay, I will need to sit with this, and it goes beyond the journey. So it goes beyond the 10 days. Like for me, I feel it was the whole 1 year after when I was like, okay, I need to hire more coaches because I need to integrate this and dive deeper into the depths. But in the end, it's so rewarding because it really sends you on that path of alignment, if that's something you're looking for.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you is how do you go from, okay, you're in Peru doing ayahuasca, then you come home to the real world. How do you sort of integrate it, or how do you take what you saw, heard, listened to there and really integrate it into your daily life? I would imagine it would be quite overwhelming with all the information that you get from there.
Yeah, it's a lot. And obviously your body is tired. It's physically also very demanding. So that's what the instructors prepared us. Like the integration work needs to be done very gently and allow yourself time. So when I came back here in the US, like at least a week not working or just getting back into, the busyness, but really slowing down and feeling what wants to emerge and then journaling on it, reflecting. And that's where I started also doing breath work, because breath work is really helpful if there are still some stuck energy, some blocks, to release it, as well as Kundalini yoga. So I stepped up with these modalities of really releasing, okay, like I don't need to have clarity yet. I just need to process it, right? So there will be this time of the unknown. Like, I don't know what to do with this. And like just being guided, okay, these are the practices. Maybe I need to do foods, right? Like lighter foods, maybe less caffeine. And seeking out people. So what happened after is like I started seeking out people who I felt they had something in their consciousness was like, wow, I want to explore this. I want to unlock what they've unlocked. So I wasn't following necessarily people who had the best marketing or were the most popular, but those that had a higher consciousness than me. And then, I don't know, that spirit led me to them, and we started working together. And through this path, one transformation unlocked after the other, but it's essentially like you don't know in the start, and you can't expect to know, right? You just need to follow the nudges.
That makes total sense. And it makes sense that you know, took time to, you know, really understand what it meant and implement and all those modalities. So I'm sort of wondering with that, because you mentioned you implemented some different modalities like yoga, like breath work. What do you do now as a sort of, or do you have a spiritual practice that you do sort of on like a daily or weekly basis?
Yeah, so I've always had like a practice, whether it was in the morning or in the evening, where I intentionally connected myself through meditation or yoga. And really adding breath work into the last year made a huge difference. Kundalini yoga, it's really related to ayahuasca, actually, because ayahuasca helps you awaken your Kundalini, your creative life force energy. And then if you want to cultivate it, Kundalini yoga is an incredible pairing with that, because it really helps you to maintain that flow within, right? Connected to your heart, to your intuition, your womb, and just it goes much deeper. It really deeper than the normal, I would say, vinyasa yoga or hatha yoga, because it really works on subconscious blocks. It works on your aura and your magnetic field, and really amplifying that radiance. And especially as women, right, we want to attract things to us. We don't want to push and force. So working on this energy field around you, I feel that was the biggest gift, is like how to work with your energy so you become a magnet, kind of things start coming to you at the right place, right time, rather than making things happen.
Totally. And I agree with that completely. I'm really big on energetics. A lot of my clients come to me, or a lot of the things I hear from them is like, that's all great and dandy, but like, I need to pay my bills, right? So it's like, okay, how do we align listening to our intuition, doing our spiritual practices, really paying attention to that and doing what fulfills us with, like, we live in a society in capitalism where we have to pay our bills with money. So what are kind of the advice or thoughts that you would give to someone who sort of says that?
Right. Obviously, that's a very valid concern, because we still live here grounded and we need to take these necessary action steps. It all depends like where you are in your business, right? Some might be very stable and safe, so they have more time to venture out and explore. Some might really need that, like, okay, I need this job even if it's not really connected to my purpose, but I need it. So just realizing like where are you, right? Because there's nothing wrong with taking a job because I need to pay the bills, without getting overly attached to like, this is who I am. I feel like the biggest shift is like realizing, because we were talking about abundance before, like realizing where's that scarcity mindset within you. Like, where do you feel there's not enough? Like, you won't make it through? Where do you feel like you have to stick to that familiar road and that's the only thing there is, right? And instead, start getting creative, start connecting to nature and kind of the universal laws of inexhaustible wealth and abundance. Because if you look at nature, there's always enough, it's in circulation, we're always provided for, right? We just need to kind of be connected to that flow of giving and receiving. And once you work with those fears, with that scarcity, and you start tapping with, like, that's where that moment happens, when you start tapping into your heart, like, what am I actually passionate about? What brings me alive? Where are my innate gifts? Because that's the game changer. When you work with your gifts, you're actually able to bring better results to people because you're not forcing it. It's not the skill that you learn through this lifetime. It's something you probably have from your past lifetimes. You are really good at it. You're like, and you're still perfecting it, right? So that energy of passion and commitment to that will really make you a master at it. And that's actually what draws people in. It's not like the service that you do, it's your relationship to it and your energy. So people will feel that, wow, like there's a spark of energy, there's aliveness, there's magnetism. I want to be around this person. And that's where your source of abundance and inexhaustible wealth is. So recognizing that you have something within you that people will love to pay for it, and you will bring incredible results for them, and just start small and start discovering it, because ultimately it's a long journey, right? But the first step and then after the other.
Definitely. I think that was something I struggled with a lot when I started my business is I didn't know how to show up online. I didn't know how to not sell myself, but show my skills or really embody it. And I struggled a lot with that. I really struggled, and it showed up, in my online presence. I wasn't getting the views or the responses or whatever it is. And whether you have your own business or not, I think it's just about showing up as your authentic self. Sometimes it can feel really hard, especially in an online space, of saying, okay, how do I show up in a way that's me, but also I'm looking at the metrics, but also I'm looking at, am I going viral? Am I getting the likes, the clicks, all the things? And it can be such a challenging dichotomy to focus on all of these things at once.
Right. Yeah, it's a lot. When you first start, right? You really step into the unknown, and it's a trial and error. Like you learn through it all. So just knowing that, like releasing that perfectionism, like the first post needs to be like this. And I think the perfectionism is what holds many back, even me, like in the beginning, like coming from corporate, right, where everything is linear and planned and structured, you suddenly like there's the freedom can be overwhelming, right? Because you can do everything and anything. So yeah, just getting clarity, I would say, like getting clarity on what is it that you're good at, that you love, but at the same time that brings value for people and they're willing to pay for it, right? And that can shift and evolve through the years, but starting small and start writing, like being honest. I would say being honest with yourself, like where you're at, what are the experiences you had with the topic, maybe share your story, what frustrates you about the industry, what excites you, these posts are more relatable than some manufactured copywriting tips that will help you go viral, because ultimately you don't want virality, you don't want millions of people looking at you, you want the right people coming to you, those who trust you and who want to invest in your services. So really having clarity who you're writing for, and then just being really honest, and step by step the right strategy will emerge with it as well.
So you mentioned clarity. You mentioned kind of letting go of perfectionism as much as possible. I know that's so hard for especially high achieving women. Is there any other small shifts that someone can make in their content or the way they show up online so that they stop performing but really start connecting with their audience?
Yeah, I feel a big one is like that fear of rejection. It's hard to share your most authentic self when you're still worried about what others think, and will my past colleagues or friends on the platform judge me for making this huge leap, right? Because a lot of people are now jumping into more like untapped territories and doing more like personal coaching and less of that linear business world. Huge stigma around it. I had to fight with it as well. So first of all, recognizing it. Yes, it is scary. Yes, probably in past lives, many of us were persecuted for speaking up and sharing openly. And just breathing through it, healing it, and then knowing you're safe. Like, especially I find LinkedIn such a safe platform. Like, I've rarely had any backlash or fights or arguments. It's just understanding it's you with yourself. So just recognizing your value, like you are probably really good at what you're doing. You might not see it yet. And you're looking for tangible evidence, right? That's normal. We're looking for validation and confirmation we're good enough, right? We like having the permission to share this. But then recognizing we don't need any permission. It's, as an entrepreneur, you are your own boss, right? So that's what I love about it, is you have to start making these shifts within. And it can be helpful to have a coach, of course. That's how I kind of broke out of this as well, is like having someone to guide you and recognize the blind spots, all right? And yeah, a lot of the times what I see is also there's a need to do more of that inner reflection. So especially if we are selling some intangible services or coaching services, really reflecting on our own journey, like who am I? Why am I here? What makes me unique? What's like my big mission? You know, just having deeper clarity on that always helps then also communicate it with the world.
You mentioned past lives. So do you believe in past lives?
Of course,
Crazy.
yes.
Have you ever done any like sort of spiritual, I don't know, meditation or gone to someone to see your past lives?
Yes, a couple of times. And it's always enlightening because with every regression, with every meditation, you get one step deeper. So first of all, I just saw the beautiful and glamorous past lives, but afterwards I started also seeing the not so nice past lives, and especially where a lot of the blocks arose, like persecution blocks. Like I saw like I was, I don't know how you call it, like a guillotine, like
Oh, yeah.
cut in the
Guillotine.
throat.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes, yes. Where I'm born actually in Prague, there's like this torture museum. I remember it very well. And I was like, oh, why do I feel such a strong sensations here? And then I remember it for this, because like when we are speaking our truth in the past, they did not like it. So yeah, persecution. There was also like some slavery. Yeah, different like beggars that had to do a lot with overcoming as well, like scarcity mindset and money blocks. So there were a lot of like lives that were not very pleasant. But I think it's very enlightening when you, so I don't feel you need to believe in it or not. That's something you connect with, right? Either you can connect with it, like, yeah, probably it's not my first time that I'm here. So some memories maybe are triggered. Like, for example, when you travel to a place, sometimes like, wow, this place feels so familiar, right? There's some connection to it. Or when you meet, maybe you've had that, like you've encountered a person, like, why do I know you? We haven't even talked, but there's some familiarity there, right? So just realizing these synchronicities and yeah, go deeper, do some past life regression or breath work. It can really show a lot.
I really want to do it because I'm super fascinated by it. It was funny because when I was born, like, I guess I didn't cry when I was born. And my grandma said, like, I had these big eyes. And she was like, that means, like, you're an old soul and you've had past lives. And I've had an obsession since I was a child with like Egypt, like the time period, like with the pharaohs and stuff. And I have no reason to be obsessed with it. And I've always wanted to go to Egypt. I haven't been. And I've also had an obsession with like World War II. I had my great grandparents and my grandfather, they were Jewish. And so they were in the Holocaust, like all the things. So like there's a lot of like ties to that. So I always felt like there was some sort of like connection that I would be so curious to see, like if I had any past lives in any of those times, because I very much felt like there's sort of, I have a connection to those time periods, even though I don't know why.
Oh, wow. I got chills when you were talking about this. Especially that Egypt timeline. I think for many of us, like old souls and healers, we feel that connection to Egypt right before it started getting corrupted and where that power play and ego came into place. And I have so many memories there, like from especially women, you know, like being oracles and connected to the womb and like dancing. And there are these goddesses like Hathor or Isis that just hold so much medicine when we connect to them. Like we can really feel parts of their template in us, you know, and that's also one of the things, like recognizing your gifts is when you connect to these grail queens and oracles of the past, you can see like, wow, like who feels familiar, who am I maybe representing in this life. Yeah, definitely follow your curiosity, because I feel when you visit the place, it holds some codes for you to then integrate and potentially, help people in your work as well.
Yeah, I definitely want to go to Egypt. It's on my bucket list. Obviously, Europe, I've spent a lot of time in Europe with World War II. I've been to a lot of museums here and spent time in a lot of those countries where it's been greatly affected. So that's there. But also with people in my life who I'm like, oh, I've known you before. And then other people where I'm like, you are a new person. And I genuinely feel like that person, like my husband, I feel like he's a new person. I've never met him before in previous lifetimes. I feel like I had to let go of my other relationships and then he was able to come into this lifetime, which people think I'm crazy when I say that, but like I totally feel that that's the case.
Yeah, it's so interesting with your partner, right? To feel like, is this new or are we repeating the same dance, right? Because some connections can be karmic. I feel, for example, with my partner, we have met in a past life because he's an old soul as well. So he's from Persia and he feels really connected to the Persian Empire, but also Roman Empire because we met in Italy. I feel very connected to it as well. So I do feel we had some past lives and yeah, it's more of like a mutual, I would say, like growth and support rather than, some connections can be very intense where you mirror each other and
Yeah.
catalyze something. It's more of a kind of like a soulmate connection.
Totally. And I love, like, I dream a lot too. And so that's been very interesting to sort of analyze my dreams. I've always been a very, very big dreamer and like very specific dreams, very eclectic. I always remember them when I wake up in full detail. So they've been very interesting. And also, I do a lot of meditations. And I know you were talking about that sort of like the breath work and things. And I always tell people this again, people think I'm crazy, but like I've talked to my unborn child. I'm not pregnant. I'm not anything, but I've talked to her. I know I've known since I was little what her name is going to be, that she's a girl. I had a dream when she was going to be born, like within a month, like, and people think I'm like insane for saying that, but I'm like, I literally talked to her. I know she's there. She's like, her aura is around me. It's so interesting.
Oh my God, wow, that's really powerful. I've just recently read about this in a book that you can feel like the energy of your unborn child. So it's fascinating to hear that you feel so connected to her. And how long do you feel she's been in your field? Is it like a longer time or?
So it's interesting because I've like, since I can remember, like, I don't know, 7, I've known what her name is going to be. Like, I've just had this idea of what her name is going to be, but I started feeling her energy. And I read the book Spirit Babies, which I was very interested in, that talks about a guy who was, he could basically talk to or channel spirit babies for people and couples. And so he shared stories in the book. It's a very interesting book. And I read that. And just, I would say the last couple of years, I felt her really. I didn't feel her previously to that the last few years. And it was funny because I never imagined having kids with someone. I always knew that I was going to be a mom regardless if I had a partner or not. That was just, I always said that to me, that was more important than having a partner or being married. But when my husband and I got together, and we were together for about 2 years or so, I had a dream with the 3 of us, and she was sitting in between us in the dream. So to me, that was like, okay, I'm like, she's telling me that he's the person I'm supposed to have her with, and she's going to come from our relationship, even though she's attached to me, but she's going to come from our relationship together. So I would say like the past like 2 years or so, I felt her energy around me.
Wow, that's so meaningful, and I imagine like so fulfilling when you feel that, right? It's not just a pregnancy; it's like a soul that wants to come through you and that you feel connected with. So
It
I
brings a
love
lot of
that.
like peace and calm into my life, and just kind of like this knowing of like I've always known. And I'm not, and when most people meet me, like I've had guys who I've dated and they're like, I could never imagine you as a mom, because I'm very like career forward. I'm pretty, people think I'm sometimes a bitch, the way I come off, like I have resting bitch face. I can be pretty serious. And so a lot of people don't see that nurturing side of me, but I've always known I meant to be a mom. Like it was never a question to me, despite being someone who, my life doesn't maybe look like someone who wants to be a mom. So it's always been interesting having that knowing versus like how I actually, live my life and show up.
Right. Yeah, being connected to that inner knowing is so beautiful.
Yeah,
Agree.
it's definitely been very interesting, and that kind of transitions into what I wanted to ask you more about your work, because obviously, we've talked about kind of the spiritual aspect and a lot of that, which I love, but you do a lot of the somatic work as well in your business, which I'm not as familiar with. I've definitely done some things and I think it's super important, but I'd love for you to kind of talk about what shifted for you in focusing on the mind to actually then focusing on the body, leading with the body and doing that somatic work.
I love that. Yeah, so embodiment is really about descending into the infinite intelligence of your body and feeling really connected to your emotions, your sensations, and to recognizing that we don't just have a physical body, but like mental. A lot of us spend most of the time in the mental body, right? And it's become kind of like a paralysis for us because we're so overly attached to the mind and we see it as this is the truth. Our thoughts are the ultimate truth and constantly looping, repeating, right? And just not breaking out of that. It's just like we're controlled by the mind. And also like society has kind of repressed also that more intuitive wisdom, like that feminine psyche, that right brain, right? Like the creativity, the intuition, the connection to our feelings, because it's seen as less than. It's like deceiving, it's chaotic. It's like we can't trust it, right? It's instinctual. So that there's been a programming around it. Whereas when you can really and it's not about one is better than other. It's really about them working synchronous together. So mind, heart, coherence, right? And that's a huge part of the work, as well as soul. I would add, because a lot of the embodiment work focuses on mind, body. What I add to it is that layer of the soul and the energy, because we all have an energetic body, we all have a light body. That's how we are connected to the divine. That's kind of our divine energy radiance, right? And there can be a lot of distortions around it, a lot of like heavy energy, a lot of programming that like we don't see ourselves as these divine beings who are here for a purpose and who are guided by something bigger than us, and feeling connected to everyone around us and everything, right? That's where the connection has been severed, like the connection to source, connection to others, everything is separate, right? It's like that ego illusion of the reality. And so for this embodiment work, it's really weaving all these bodies together, coming more in tune with your emotions. A lot of people don't feel emotions, they've just numbed them or they're frozen, right? Through past traumas, past neglects. It's just safer not to feel. Let's just use the mind instead, right? And that's a huge problem because then if you don't feel anything here, your life is kind of like linear, but then you're not going to feel love and aliveness and ecstasy, all these things that actually make life meaningful. So really descending into the body, using the breath, using energy, light, frequency, sound as well is really helpful to start removing these numbing shields and start feeling what is there? What is that we've been buried? What is it that we've been ignoring? And allowing yourself to feel again. And that's where your intuition starts coming back online. You start also getting connected more with the creative power, because the kind of the programming is around we delegate our power to others. Like we are victim of our circumstances and there's always someone who has to tell us what we have to do. But when you connect with your body, you feel like, wow, I have all this creative power within. Your inner fire, your spark, right? And especially as women, like connecting to the womb space, following our desires, our aliveness, it's so important because then that connection within happens. You start integrating also your masculine, feminine energies, and that's where you come into more of a wholeness, a whole way of being. Rather than always looking into the external, like, why is this happening? And look at that political event and, oh, the economy and AI, right? Constantly living in that state of external, whereas the power needs to be found internally. So I feel, yeah, the combination of embodiment and that energy work really helps to unify yourself.
It's interesting because I've done a lot of research on this, and for a lot of high achieving women, and I work with a lot of high achieving women, a lot of them are in therapy. I was in therapy too, CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, otherwise known as talk therapy, where we just kind of talk it out, right? And I've read a lot of information on this that says, that's great, but for a lot of people, especially these like high achieving, stressed, burned out women, that's not enough. The somatic work is really needed in order to sort of release a lot of those tensions. So I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on that and how you can blend sort of that talk therapy or other modalities with somatic work to really get that benefit.
Yeah, absolutely. That's such an important discussion. And I feel like we're going to be having more of these discussions because a lot of the kind of the mainstream thought is like therapy and mindset work and visualization, right? Working with the mind. But as you said, like a high achieving woman or men who are burned out, that's something that needs to be regulated on a nervous system and somatic level. That's like your spine, your nervous
Yeah.
system, and that cannot be like talked about, right? That needs really that somatic work. So I find the most effective is like breath work, especially releasing like these tensions and releasing stress, releasing anxiety. Like there are specific breathing techniques that really help to come back into coherence, heart-mind coherence, and then rewiring new patterns. Like a lot of the research and coaches, they talk about rewiring through the mind, which I agree is super powerful. We need to be in charge of our thoughts and kind of have that direction. But the rewiring, I find it's really effective when it's done also somatically. So through the breath, intentionally cultivating new emotions, and through the energy work as well.
Yeah.
So the light and sound frequencies, they really, that's where you like understand that the human body is multidimensional. We're not just up here, but it's like working with all the layers of the body. So I find it exciting that more of the science is catching up with this ancient wisdom.
Definitely. I mean, it's something I typically recommend to my clients as well. Like I always talk about mindset work, like the language shifting, the affirmations, and also how can we regulate your nervous system, the breath work, the meditations, right? The grounding. That's been super important. And I've even noticed this in myself. I love going to Miami. My listeners know I spend time in Miami, even when I'm like put my feet in the sand or I go in the ocean because I love water. Like I just feel this sort of cleanse, this sort of sense of relax. I was just in Italy and I was in the sea and I felt just such a difference just being in there and just grounding myself physically, something that is equal to or even more helpful than talking it out with a therapist.
Right, because you're connecting to nature, and grounding is really connecting to the earth, which already holds these healing properties, these electrons, right? That when you put your feet on the grass, they transmit through your body. So you're connecting to that healing force of nature. And just recognizing that, right? Like a lot of the high achievers might live in cities and always communing and sitting for a long time and really very toxic environments. So adapting your lifestyle to more movement, more nature time, salt water is incredible. And just doing things that you love, I think that's also important. It's just following more of that spark, what you enjoy doing, and removing those stressors, because it also doesn't make sense to regulate your nervous system while staying in a toxic environment, right? That's kind of counterproductive.
Yeah, it doesn't. It's just a band-aid on the
Yes.
situation. I love that. And I think that's so important. And that kind of, goes into what I wanted to connect on is sort of the connection aspect too, which I think is super important and something I know you're super passionate about is I do think, especially we live in these toxic environments, we're sitting at a desk all day or we're entrepreneurs or solo entrepreneurs like ourselves sitting at home. Maybe we don't interact with people as much. That can cause a lot of stress. You have such a great and, heart-centered project, which is Europe Meets Miami. And I'd love for you to kind of talk about what that is and how that came to life and how that sort of relates to everything that you're doing.
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. So last year, we moved with my partner to Miami after spending many years in Europe. And yeah, for the same reasons, like we really loved it. Probably same like you, like the outdoor lifestyle, the opportunities here, the wellness. It's just fantastic to live an embodied life here. And as well, like a lot of people are moving here, so it's very dynamic. And that's where we kind of saw the need. It's like when you move to a new country, which we've done with my partner many times, it can take months, even years, to meet new people and become integrated in the community. Especially now, we're both entrepreneurs, so we don't have like a team of people, right, that we can relate to all by ourselves. We just knew a handful of people. So we were at this bar one evening in August last year with one of our friends, Tarja, she's one of the co-organizers. She moved here from Finland 20 years ago. So like a local, knows everything, has plenty of relationships. But still, she was feeling the same. Like during COVID, like it's hard to gather people together. Like everybody's working on their computers, and it's just like it needs some effort, right, to bring people into real life. So we kind of just by chatting, we were like, why don't we create our own community? There was this community thing. Europeans meet New Yorkers, something like that. A lot of people here moving to Miami. And we were like, yeah, this is actually people want to meet other people. So we were like, okay, let's do our own community. It was just like very simple. Like, so Tarja brought the people, Armin did the design of the website, I did the messaging. And within a month or so, we had our first meetup, which was great. Around 30 people came. And then we started seeing the thread, like what brings these people together, because we were doing it on a monthly basis. And we saw like, yeah, people are interested in meeting in restaurants, bar, but a lot of people here are also interested in more connection to themselves, their well-being. So they want to go for a walk in the park or do some breath work. So we started alternating meeting in a new restaurant or bar every time to having an outdoor activity. And that's where we saw, wow, people actually really like this. Meeting new people, but doing something good for yourself. And we just saw like really good traction. And what I think brings these people together is, sure, like a lot of them are Europeans, but a lot of them are also Americans or locals who are just interested in the people or in Europe in general. But what brings them really together is those common values. So it's not a shared interest. A lot of communities are based on shared interests, like, okay, we're on LinkedIn, creators on LinkedIn, or we're in the wellness space. It's more like it's very inclusive. Anyone can join. And mostly it's like that resonance comes from people who kind of went through similar experiences, moving to a new city or country, starting over. A lot of them are entrepreneurs, having the courage to follow your dreams and, just being really open to meeting new people. And that's what I feel is kind of that organic thread and heart of the community is people really resonating on a deeper level.
I love that. And I told you offline that I just missed your last, the one in April, by a day. I was so sad because I really wanted to join. I've never really seen anyone do anything like this, and I think it's so unique, but it's so nice because something that I personally experience is even though I look American, I talk American, I grew up in the States, I never felt completely integrated with other quote unquote Americans. And so having a group like Europe Meets Miami, you find people that are also multicultural, that are also from different places, and you can connect on something that maybe other people couldn't connect on who haven't live somewhere else and then move to Miami. So I absolutely love that. I always see your newsletters and it's so special. And I'm so excited to one day hopefully be able to come to one of the meetups because it sounds really, really cool.
Yeah, hopefully soon both you and your partner can join here. We start again in October with a walk in Fairchild Garden, which is very beautiful garden. And then, yeah, it would be great to have you on one of the meetups.
I'm so excited. I love it. Well, just my last question to you. I just love to kind of hear, what are you feeling the most lit up by at this point in your career and this next season of your life?
Yeah, I feel it's going full on now into the embodiment coaching journey. So I've already done some embodiment work with my clients starting from last year. weaving in that inner work with their messaging. But now I decided, in fact, today I made the official announcement that I'm going full in on embodiment coaching and really supporting people with these energetic and somatic journeys, just building this movement forward, creating momentum, and providing value both to my clients but also online. So showing up on LinkedIn, showing up for the community, building more of that Europe meets Miami. But I'm also excited to kind of enjoy the summer back in Europe and relax and slow down
Are you
because that's
coming
hard.
to Europe?
Yeah. Next week, I'm actually traveling back for the whole summer. Yeah.
Well, amazing. Where are you going to be? Just one place the whole time or traveling around?
So I'll be traveling around, staying in Milan, but then Tuscany and Sardinia, going back to Czech Republic, and potentially also to the UK.
So fun. That's exciting. I love Milan as well. It's such a fun city. Awesome.
Yeah, it's always nice to reconnect back with the roots and yeah, just soak in. European lifestyle is more like slow, so I'm really looking forward to that.
Well, I always said, I think I said this when we were offline, but Europe in the summer is, there's nothing better than Europe in summertime. It's
Yeah,
just, it's
yes,
such a vibe, the energy, just everything. I love everything about it.
right. That's so true.
Amazing. Well, tell everyone, Barb, where they can find you, where they can follow your work, and learn more about everything you're up to.
Yeah, so you can find me on LinkedIn. That's where I post every week. So feel free to follow me or write me a DM and say hi. I love connecting with people and having conversations. And yeah, if this sparked something within you, I'll be actually sharing my embodiment offer on Thursday. And for the first 3 people, there will be like a special offer. So yeah, make sure to say hi and yeah, would love to connect.
Amazing. And we'll put everything in the show notes as well so everyone can easily access it. Well, thank you,
Wonderful.
Barb. This was such a good conversation. We could have talked for hours, I think, but I really appreciate you coming on and sharing everything. And we'll have to do a part 2 for sure.
Yes, absolutely. Let's see where that takes us because this time it was really beautiful. Thank you, Diana, again for the invitation. Really appreciate it. And yeah, hope you have a wonderful summer.
Thank you. And to everyone else, thanks for listening. Please rate, review, and subscribe if you liked the episode. And hope you have an amazing week. Catch you on the next episode. Bye.